Sounds good. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me on a Friday morning. My name is Dr. Dana Marshall. Lovely to see everyone here in the room with us. Please make sure you get food and then more food if you need, because we are stocked up. And thank you to everyone who's joining on Zoom as well. Hopefully you can see and hear me okay. Today is really, we're hoping we'll kick off a longer term discussion about AI literacy here on campus that'll continue throughout the year. And we know that it's a really big topic. It's been showing up all over the place. You've been hearing about it all over the place in news and all of this kind of stuff. So we really wanted to make sure that we gave a little workshop that covers specifically what it is, addresses some misperceptions that people have about AI and AI literacy, but also opening up space to talk about AI because it is an emerging new technology that is rapidly changing how we're doing things and reshaping our world. So we want to talk about some of the opportunities and also challenges that come along with that, right? So we had no idea how many people were going to be here today. We wanted as many people as we're able, but we also want to make sure you're getting out of it what you would like. So I would really like to encourage you to raise your hand, ask questions, share stories, discuss, comment, whether it be on Zoom, in the chat. If you have questions come up, we have Dr. Van here monitoring the chat for me so I won't miss those. So please feel free, if there are things that you're curious about, unsure about, and want to talk about, reach out, because let's have this be a conversation, right? That said, I have prepared a few things that I want to go over today. One is why we need AI literacy in the first place. AI is already here. Why is the literacy part of it so important? Also, this is going to be a fun millennial movie trivia game in a lot of my references. It's already here is from Twister, if you didn't know. So AI is here. It's already making an impact. And we need to figure out what that means, what that looks like, so forth and so on. All right. We're also going to talk about what it is. When we're saying AI literacy, what does that actually mean? What do you actually need to be able to do? What are some misperceptions about it? One of the most dangerous things is people thinking they're AI literate and not actually being AI literate, right? And then also we're going to talk about some emerging topics for our discussion. Even today in the news, when I was looking at stuff this morning, I saw new things that are coming out connected to AI. And so people who were here helping me set up saw me adding things to my slide morning of so that we're as up to date as possible. So there's a lot coming forward. There's a lot of different contexts that AI is showing up in, and so we'll talk about that as well. Okay, and anything that you all want to bring up, let's chat about it. So let's talk about the state of AI literacy today. There are a few examples here from within the past, I want to say at least 2 or 3 months even. Some of these in the past week have been going on in terms of announcements that have really pointed to the need for higher AI literacy, okay? The first image here is actually a finding from Fortune. It was covering an MIT report that tracked a bunch of AI initiatives that companies were running, all right? So they had all of these AI initiatives going. They sometimes laid off significant portions of their workforce in order for AI to start doing these things. In tracking those pilot studies, 95% of the companies declared that a failed pilot. It was not successful. It was not able to run or do the things that they set it out to do. 95%, right? So people are kind of whole hog putting all their chips in this AI basket. They're thinking it can do all these things, but when it actually comes down to it in practice, there's a disconnect happening. Something's not working. It's not quite right. So that clearly says we're overestimating or not scaffolding how we are applying AI appropriately. We don't actually understand its capabilities yet, right? Similarly, we see in the middle image there, it says OpenAI introduces parental controls for ChatGPT. OpenAI is actually dealing with a lawsuit right now stemming out of California as a result of a teenage young man who was interacting with AI significantly with ChatGPT, and it contributed to his decision to commit suicide, right? And there were major concerns that there aren't guardrails, that there aren't any kind of appropriate ways to address people in crisis, that ChatGPT is even engaging in these kind of conversations, that it's not redirecting them, that there aren't these safeguards, particularly for young people who don't have AI literacy or don't know or fully understand what it is they're interacting with and the dangers that come with that. So we've learned by rolling it out that there are harms that come with kind of this unfettered access and with people who don't understand what they're interacting with AI extensively, okay? And last but not least is actually another study out of MIT. And this one looked at what our brains do on ChatGPT, all right? I assume many of you have heard the term brain rot. Yes, yes. So we think about that a lot in terms of how we engage with content, engage with social media and stuff. But a lot of us don't necessarily think about it with AI bot, right? Or ChatGPT. But MIT actually did a study. They looked at and compared people's brains on ChatGPT. Are your brains thinking when you're using it? And they actually found there is a difference in terms of what information you're coming in with, right? So if you're using ChatGPT in an area that you already have expertise, for example, then when you use ChatGPT, your critical thinking part of your brain lights up, Christmas lights. It's happy, it's doing stuff, okay? Because you already are aware of the kind of things that you're looking for, and so you're critiquing, you're looking at the feedback it's giving you to say yes or no, right? But if you're using ChatGPT in something that you are not familiar with, in something you don't have the solid foundation in something you don't understand, that part of your brain is taking a nap. It's not doing anything, right? And so if you're using ChatGPT to write a paper for class, but you don't really understand the assignment or the material, right? Your brain is doing nothing, okay? And your brain isn't going to be able to look and see what it's spitting out if it's any good or not, okay? So relying on ChatGPT when you don't have foundations, when you haven't done the work in order to have basic understanding of the content, you're leaving yourself very, very vulnerable to whatever the AI bot spits out, right? So it is prevalent. We are using it. Most students admit to having used it, sometimes inappropriately, sometimes just for fun, those kind of things. We're interacting with it all the time. So it behooves us to make sure that we are interacting with it in a literate way. And so we'll talk about what that means. So what is it? I actually asked students in my class, what do you think AI literacy means? And the basic response is, it means you understand AI. And I would push that a little bit further in saying, you need to be able to understand AI's competencies and its limitations. You need to be able to really understand it. You need to understand what it can do and what it can't do, right? In terms of its ability. They also said it means being able to use AI, right? And again, I would push on this. I would say, yes, but you need to be able to use it appropriately. That means using the right AI for the right task, right? In the right circumstance, in the ethical way. Yeah, right? And last but not least, they say knowing how to write a good prompt for AI, right? Because you can't quite just use it like Google. Sometimes you need to be more specific. And to this, I would say, yes, you need to engineer it you're not often going to get what you're looking for out of one entry. You're going to have this critical interaction to get the best outcomes, to get the best outputs, right? So what I would articulate are the most important things in generating AI literacy is having solid information literacy at the start, okay? That is, you understand where your information is coming from, who authors it, how that influences the information, and what's going on there, right? What are the different purposes of the information? Why are you seeing it? What's motivating behind it? Is it something that is reliable, trustworthy, those kind of things? You can't put that on the back burner. You can't trust AI to do that work for you. That is your responsibility as a user. That has to come with everything, okay? Your critical thinking skills. If you're a student, if you're in class, if you're a professor, right? This is something that's probably harped on all the time. We need to be able to critically think. That's one of the biggest transferable skills that college students have, that a college education provides. Most of the information that we're teaching you is out there and available. What we provide is a way to think through it, to interact with it, to work on it in order to develop these critical thinking skills that anytime you need to learn something will allow you to learn it, right? So critical thinking is about your ability to learn and to learn well, right? And then last but not least is ethical reasoning. We focus a lot on can we do things? We also need to focus on should we do things, right? And we'll talk about that a lot more. But when you're making a decision about how and why you're going to interact, especially when it's kind of the Wild West right now, there's not a lot of guardrails in place. You need to be making your own decisions about whether what you're doing is ethical and appropriate, right? So you have those things. I would argue you can say, yes, I am AI literate, all right? But that also means continuously focusing on things, continuously keeping up with these things. I've had the opportunity to talk about AI for a while now. I constantly am having to update stuff because it's constantly changing. And so sometimes that can be exhausting, right? We get tired. We just want to rely on it and not have to think about it. We want our brains to have a little nap sometimes. It's very tempting, right? But we can't give in to that temptation. We really need to make sure that we are thinking through how we are using it and why, right? So when it comes to literacy, a lot of times people will say, I did my own research. I saw things online. Some influencer said this and I believe it. We really are kind of in a crisis of information literacy, and I think that is very tightly tied to AI literacy. A lot of students actually have trouble with recognizing where their information is coming from. And part of that is even when you Google anything now, you're getting AI overviews at the start. For a long time, those AI overviews weren't even linked to the information that they were pulling it from. So you had no way to trace its source or see where it came from. And so is it any wonder that a lot of people are like, AI, Google, it's the same thing, right? But there is a difference between authorship, between where it's coming from. And AI makes it harder to trace where that information that we're getting is coming from. It makes it harder to understand the influences. It makes it harder to understand who's authoring it, what other motivations might be behind it, what kind of rigor went into it, those kind of things as well, right? And so AI literacy exacerbates the challenges with information literacy, okay? And we do have challenges. This was from the last university-wide assessment here on campus, assessing information literacy for graduating seniors. Our graduating seniors, only 39% were able to evaluate voices or sources. That means we're able to say who was saying what with reliability, all right? Locate the sources and the voices, find the original source that information was coming from, or even identify the voices or sources in a piece of work, right? That means that we see the information, but we're not really good at understanding or tracing where that information is coming from, who is doing it, or how to find it. And that's something on this campus with our graduating seniors that we were struggling with. Okay, so that means it's all of our responsibility to do better and to take it seriously. Because it's harder to do now than it used to be, because we are bombarded with information constantly. All right, I'm very hyper aware of this because I teach it, right? And I still have trouble with that because let's face it, you just look at the headline and then you move on and you kind of very quickly make a judgment. Do I think that's real or not? And then move on. This is how misinformation spreads. This is how we get that put forward as well. All right, so this leads to a common misperception that we have, all right? The misperception is that all AI can do the same thing, right? One AI is the same as another AI. If I use ChatGPT, it's the same as using a more specific AI or specialized AI. AI can do whatever, right? When in all reality, all AI programs, all AI bots have to be trained in some way. And so in the room, how many of you have dogs or have had dogs at some point in your life? Yeah, yeah. You may have had multiple dogs. Some dogs are really well trained. Some dogs are little terrors, right? And they're doing crazy things. AI bots are very much the same way, right? You might have some AI bots that are like this dog here, right? They are super specialized. They are hyper vigilant. They are trained. They are, very intense. And then you have other AI bots that are like this. And if you're looking for a good internet hole to go down, my name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, and my name is Jess. Combo is just beautiful and fun. All right, but AI bots are very much like this, all right? Some AI bots are being used for things that they are not trained to do. And yet we are trusting it as if it was. So not all are created equal, okay? And part of this comes down to how AI actually works. So I actually want to go back to the basics here for a second. AI is not just another algorithm. It's a particular kind of machine learning, right, that reaches its outcomes. So a typical algorithm, you have someone coding it, you have programs, old 90s hacker movies are like going in and they're entering and messing with the code. And if you change one line of code, it does all these crazy things, right? That's talking about rule-based algorithms, all right? These are direct and unambiguous. Sometimes they're very complex, but you can trace why it does everything that it does. It's very transparent. You can actually look at the code and see what's happening, okay? This code is written by humans, though now we actually have AI writing code as well. So that's a whole other thing, right? AI, however, is a type of machine learning. Machine learning is you give the machine a goal, you give it a bunch of data, and then you give it feedback, and it iterates so many times, more times than we could even imagine. And this is what leads to artificial intelligence. So what we give it and what we tell it to do and the kind of feedback it receives is how we train it to be able to do all these kind of things. But we don't actually know how or why it's reaching the conclusions that it is reaching. It's this black box idea. It spits out an outcome, but we can't say, oh, it said this because of that. We don't always know why it says what it says. And this gets tricky when we're asking it to do things that we as humans can't actually do for ourselves or don't have a way of vetting or knowing, right? So what happens when we have no way to give it feedback to let it know if it's right or wrong? And that's a really important question that we have to consider, okay? But we also want to think about, where is the feedback coming from? Is it coming from the user? A lot of large language models, it is. The goal that the large language model has is just to make the user happy and keep wanting to work with it and use it. And so if that's the goal, and the user is saying, give me things that only I agree with, that's going to change the way that AI bot behaves, the kind of information it provides, the way it talks to you, those kind of things, okay? And that means that we actually have AI hallucinations. This is AI generated. It's how I like to imagine AI hallucinations happen. Seems very sweet and wholesome. But sometimes these hallucinations can also lead to bad outcomes, right? Especially when they're not identified. This is where it just straight up is making things up, right? Because again, we don't know how it's reaching the conclusions that it's reaching. How many of you have interacted with any kind of AI and you asked it to do something and it gave you something that was like, that's not it at all? Anyone? Yeah. Anyone care to share an example?
I couldn't think of something specific, but I definitely remember like just being like, I'm not listening to that, and I'll just like close off and just kind of move on. It's like doing school stuff, it's just like throughout the day.
Yeah. Same for you?
Yeah, stuff like oh, I'll just tell it to make me like a example workout plan just to see what it will do. And
Yeah.
it'll be like the worst workouts ever, like nothing, and it's the best scientific proven and whatnot.
Yeah, and so, but with the workout plan, I love that example because you have some knowledge in terms of what you're looking for, what a good workout plan should look like, right? And so you're able to say, nah, that's garbage. No, thank you. Like, go ahead, Sophia.
Better to like have like a bit started base like for like to do like a plan, like a travel, like I'm gonna go to a country and it's like just to start like to see what like cities I have to go first, and they would do like the tour and everything. But then I would look up and there were like other much prettier places, and that's like sad. Not sad, but if someone just follows that plan, it's gonna be like not worth it because you're traveling too much. That not traveling so like far away, you're not seeing the right place.
Yeah, so you might be missing out on other opportunities if you're thinking that it's giving you all the options. Rachel?
So Lucas Rubel in the chat said fabricated quotes about gender dysphoria from real authors.
Yeah, so this is the idea behind
academic bio for AI says that they're dead.
Oh yeah, and these are hallucinations, right? We don't necessarily know where it's coming from. You can't trace the origins. Random things will show up. I was using it the other day to make a crossword review activity for one of my classes, and they're like, the bot said, would you like me to put this in crossword format? I said, yes, like make it a printable handout. And what it gave me was utter gibberish, just complete gibberish. But I literally said, that makes no sense. And it was able to revise, but we had to go through a few rounds and we got to a crossword, a real crossword, right? I had put in the prompts, I had put in those kind of things. I had to coach it because I know what a crossword looks like, and it doesn't. And this is the important thing. It doesn't actually know. It is predictive.
Yeah, so even, and by the way, if you could repeat my question,
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
So now that it'll like link to the sources, even now I'll be like looking for specific polling data. Like, is there data on this? And it'll be like, yes, here's the link. And then you click on the link and it's not there.
Yeah.
So it's still like doing the yes and improv, like, yes, I have the information you want. And it's giving you the link. But so like, if you don't actually click on the link, you don't even know that it's still making it up.
Yes, so what Alex said there is that now that it even traces to the link, sometimes the links themselves are hallucinations. So even though it says that it has it, it's following this yes and prompt. It wants to give you what you're asking for, but it doesn't actually have what you're looking for. And so putting too much trust into this can also lead to all kinds of issues. We got another good example here, Rachel.
So first of all, Corey wants everyone to know that Matt should stop harnessing improv.
No, just people are better at improv. Let's put it that way.
It is true though, the yes and filter, but Peter Hannock also says, I asked it to summarize my CV and emphasize X or Y. Then, as a joke, I asked it to emphasize my love of anime, and it made up a bunch of cosplay awards I had won. Note, I don't cosplay. More seriously, it regularly makes up pieces for art.
Yes, so this is the idea that if you ask it for something, it will fabricate something in order to try and give you what you want, even if it is not real. So in this case, fabricating a love of anime by making up cosplay awards that did not occur or did not happen. Yeah.
So I had a professor send me a paper from music class last semester that she thought was written by AI.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, for the first student who submitted, it was about Japanese and Chinese music, which I had experience in. And the sources it cited
Mhm.
didn't exist. But
Mhm.
what I thought was really weird was that I did a Google search. Like I knew who the principal authors were in those Japanese Chinese instrument areas. And I just did Japanese traditional instruments in Google. And the first thing that came up was Bill Home, which is the right source. So it's spending energy on stuff that's on making stuff up when it would be easier to actually find the real information. That's the part I don't get.
Yeah, well, and so some of that comes down to what are these AI bots being trained on? And so to this point, and to reiterate for people who can't hear, the observation was about a AI-generated paper that made up sources, even though the real sources were readily available, even if you did just a quick Google search, right? And so the data that is available for the bot that it's being trained on, right, also determines what it is going to respond to. So if you don't have high quality data, then you're probably not going to get high quality outputs. And if the data isn't properly cleaned or vetted, then you're going to get who knows what. Rachel again?
So there's a question from Connor Lyons in the chat. And to this point, actually, in the case of AI like ChatGPT, does it pull from the people who ask it directly or from the entirety of the internet?
So that's a really great question. And that actually brings us to how these bots are trained, and specifically with large language models. So that actually transitions very well. So I love when that happens. The question was, so is it responding to just people putting in the prompts? Is it pulling from the entirety of the internet? How is this working? And the answer is, as most academics love to say, it depends, right? It depends on the bot itself. It depends on what AI you're using. It depends on what it's trained on. But oftentimes, because these are private companies, we don't have a lot of transparency on what their specific data set is. They'll say that they go through data cleaning processes. They'll say that they're drawing from specific sources. But that's about the extent that we have. So with large language models, which is what most of us are interacting with, these are your ChatGPTs, your Copilots, your Geminis for the most part, right? Even your Siris, your Alexas, all of those kind of things. They're relying on these large language models, which their goal is pretty much to pass the Turing test. That's how these were very much generated. If you haven't heard of it, maybe you've seen The Imitation Game with Benedict Cumberbatch and Keira Knightley. Is based off a real guy who was a genius in computing. And pretty much Alan Turing developed what was called a Turing test, which is basically the idea that computers had the ability to interact with us in a way that is not distinguishable from another human interacting with us. And so for years and years in computer development, we were trying to develop algorithms, or now eventually AI, that would be able to pass the Turing test, which is pretty much you have someone, a real person, asking questions, and then you have a human responder and a computer responder. And the person asking questions has to figure out, based on those responses, am I talking to a human? Am I talking to a computer? Right? We do that in our day-to-day lives now all the time, right? But AI is one of, and machine learning was one of the points when we were finally able to consistently pass this Turing test, which is that ability for something that is not a human to pass as a human or talk to us as a human or understand our speech and what we're asking, similar to what a human would do. So that's the primary goal of these large language models. And so when you're training that, really in terms of the data you just need all kinds of language. Doesn't really matter if that language is accurate or not. You just need lots of it, right? So that leads us to another misperception. ChatGPT is trained to give the right answers, and it's actually not. It is trained to be a large language model. It is trained to keep us engaged, to keep us interacting with it, and to make us happy, to give us the things that we are asking it for, right? And to talk to us in the language that we're used to, all right? So the actual fact is that the model is trained on a massive data set to predict what the next word or token sentence of the text learning patterns in human language should be. It's then reinforced with our feedback. So to answer the question from our Zoom chat, typically, yes, they will comb the internet, they will comb all sort of publicly available sources. When we're doing voice to text kind of speech, they'll use YouTube videos and just go down that rabbit hole, pretty much anything that's open source and open access. Now, most of us are probably digital natives. We've grown up with the internet, right? And so the internet then, I hope we know, is not all created equal. There is some really wonderful information out there. There is some pretty nutty stuff out there and everywhere in between, right? And so when that's what's being trained, right, in terms of the data, it's not actually about accuracy of information. It's about talking like people talk to us and what people out there would likely say in the most predictive capacity, right? I don't know about you all, but on social media and stuff, for example, if you're asking grammar questions and you're training it on social media data, you're probably not going to have very good accuracy in terms of the grammar, right? Because people make a lot of those errors and things consistently. And so it will give you what the most likely response is, not the correct response. The feedback that it gets is one, before they launch it, how they train it in terms of giving feedback. How many of you have done CAPTCHA things or had to identify like how many streetlights and is there a car in this? Yes, that's not just to make sure that you're not a machine. It's also data that they collect that they use to train things like self-driving cars, because cars need feedback in order to identify this is a person, this is a car, this is a street light, this is a bridge, right? This is a stop sign, okay, right? That's the kind of feedback. And so it's getting it from both of those situations. So at the start, we talked a little bit about some of the guardrails that they're trying to put in. But OpenAI has said when there are long interactions, a lot of those guardrails actually go away because it's trying to give the feedback in the prompt and those kind of things, where it's really hard to ensure those guardrails stay in place when the person it's interacting with is constantly giving other feedback that weakens those restrictions. Yes. All right. And so, yeah.
That point, I was actually just listening to an NPR story yesterday on this exact issue
Yeah.
about the people who committed suicide.
Yes, that was part of the case study that I introduced at the start. Yeah.
About the paradigm.
Mhm.
And ChatGPT says that if the conversation goes on too long, they punt it over to a safer version of ChatGPT, but they still don't like kill the conversation.
Yeah, and that's been one of, so the comment for people who can't hear, the case study around the suicide has led OpenAI to respond by introducing more of these guardrails. They're basically saying that based on how the discussions go, it's being trained to shift it into a safer mode, right? It's being trained to recognize when it's talking to someone younger or someone older, and we'll see how it does with that. that in terms of accuracy. But one of the big questions raised in that same NPR piece was, should it be engaging in some of this at all, right? And this is a question in terms of the space of, we actually see rise in different AI therapy bots where some are designed to do it, some are interacting with others. And part of the thing to remember is, we don't actually know how it's reaching conclusions, how it's making decisions on how to respond in certain circumstances, but it is coming off of the data and the feedback that it's given. Yeah.
I've had a time where ChatGPT told me it wouldn't respond to me anymore.
Mhm.
It wouldn't continue the conversation.
Mhm.
Every time I try to talk to it, it will just say like, no, like, it's not gonna talk any further on the topic.
Yeah, so that's some of those guardrails. Some of the times it can work. Sometimes there are prompts, and I feel like there are subreddits about it all the time of like, here's how you avoid that, here's how you change it, here's how you, all those kind of things. Yeah.
I don't know if you saw the story that the police did about like the guy who's like resourcing the emotional support
Mhm.
from PDA, for ChatGPT, because people from like he had like a disagreement with someone from his like department, and
Mhm.
he and everybody got to know and the only person he could talk to about it was ChatGPT
Mhm.
about it. And it's crazy how like also like that's another topic now, but like how like people now have to resource to like that type of thing, because first of all they cannot afford a therapy or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's like you don't know what they're saying, like that's why there's suicide cases going on, right? So it's like so hard to know if they're saying the right answers, because sometimes they're too neutralized that it's like you don't even know how to take it. So
Yeah, so for those who couldn't hear, Sophia brought up an example covered in the Poly Post here on campus about how people will often turn to AI chatbots when they feel like they can't talk to a real person, where they don't have that option. And even as a supplement or a replacement for real human interaction, and it can feel safer because guess what? As we've learned, it's trained to just tell you what you want to hear. I mean, that's a pretty easy thing to be around, that's always agreeing with you. But it can also be unpredictable, and especially as the data sets get larger in terms of how it's reaching conclusions, when it's getting feedback from all kinds of different sources, it can lead to different kinds of disagreements, but it can also be coded to different ideological things. The New York Times a couple of weeks ago, and there have been other situations on X where Elon has had disagreements with his own AI bot Grok. And Grok will say one thing and he'll be like, no, 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 like we need to like work on that. It's having its issues because it is saying something that Elon doesn't agree with, right? And so we need to keep in mind that yes, with bigger data sets, it can be unpredictable. It can also be tailored and given feedback and re-engineered in order to push certain ideologies in different directions. That's been one of the big concerns when DeepSeek was released, because it is a state-sponsored AI. So what is being done with that information was a big security concern when it first came out, even though it was made accessible and available and free and was far less energy intensive than a lot of our Western-based AI that have been grown. It had other concerns about ideology, about certain things that it refused to discuss based on its feedback and programming, right? And so it's important to remember that these AI bots are not strictly objective. They are not thinking the same way that we are. It is being informed by this broad set of data, some of which is accurate, some of which is not, right? And it's basically guessing at what the most likely response to that type of question should be. It's not vetting things for you. So this is why you can't be passively at the wheel. It can do some really remarkable things. And so I do want to talk for a minute about what it's good at. It's pretty amazing. It can do translation and transcription. If you're on Zoom right now, you're getting closed captioning, I assume. Do we have closed captioning turned on? Maybe. You could be. You should be. All right. It can do this live, whereas before you had people who were sitting in a room just like ding, 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 trying to keep up with what people were saying. Is it perfect? No, but it offers great options, especially for accessibility for people who are hard of hearing. It allows you to interact and talk with people who speak different languages to you. My husband has to do this all the time through Zoom. He works with vendors in China. He does not speak Mandarin or Cantonese, but yet they're able to interact through live translation to be able to talk about really very technical things. Even today, I saw in the news new AirPods are coming out. They can, or at least are saying that they can, do live translation right in your ear. Imagine.
Star Trek already invented that. It's called the Universal Translator.
Yes, but Star Trek also was made of cardboard sets and little twinkle lights. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's classes coming out that like show you subtitles in real life.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had that a lot. And so there's really amazing things it can do. It can mimic writing styles amazingly well. So from making social media posts to updating resumes, LLMs are really great mimics. You can say, write something as if it's Shakespeare and it'll do it. Like it really can do that very, very well. How are we doing on time? Oh, we're great. All right. And then of course the chatbots, right? Sometimes it's nice when you have a quick question to be able to get the immediacy of an automated system that is adaptable, right? Of something that can respond.
We have folks bringing in examples of.
Yeah.
So Paul brought up Babelfish, like that's a joke that I started. Like,
Something.
I know I need the explanation for that.
It's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah.
It's a big babelfish.
Babelfish, thank you. But Josh, we also brought in the new meta classes.
Yes.
Was announced to be able to use live thing when we talk to people in person.
Yeah.
And Heather, the express with us, I asked him to write me a song of lyrics in the style of Taylor Swift. So there's
I have seen, I have a elementary schooler. She is obsessed with K-pop Demon Hunters. I follow a lot of education stuff online. And so I've seen all of the like new versions of songs for educators using the K-pop Demon Hunters theme and style, like in order to get them to like write their name on the top of the paper or stay in line in class, right? And a lot of that is used with AI tools in order to make that happen, in order to synthesize it. Ah, our professor for music has some thoughts.
So this is apocalyptic for us.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This, what it's going to do is it's going to absolutely destroy music and media. So anybody who's writing film music, gone, right? Because they've been trying to get rid of film music composers for years and pare it down, right? First they went after the orchestras, the musicians. And my concern here is that you only know what you know.
Mm-hmm.
So you can say, oh, do a thing that's, writing a song that sounds like Taylor Swift, but then how do we ever innovate after that, right? And the human, like there's something to be said also about the experience of being in person at a concert. And what I find, like, we're talking about AIs as therapists, and you look at what's happening on social media, which has tendency to divide people and make people angry all the time. It seems to me that we should just all put this under one banner and call it anti-social media, because that seems to be what it's doing, is it's dividing us from human interaction. It's putting a mediator into everything. And so that we become like fully cybernetic life forms.
And it is a really important question, and part of the challenge, the ethical consideration, right, that we have to take into account if we are going to be AI literate. At what point is it just AI talking to AI and we just get more and more garbage, we get less and less good feedback? Again, if we're interacting with it and we don't have knowledge on it, the feedback that we're giving it is going to be pretty lame, right? At the beginning, we talked about what our brains do on AI, right? If we don't have that knowledge, we don't engage in it critically. That means that we're giving feedback that is not coming from a space of critical thought and critical thinking. And so then it keeps perpetuating that, right? And so the more feedback that it gets, that the garbage is good, the more garbage it's going to create, right? It's a very dangerous space. And what happens then too when we are removing livelihoods? This is actually a discussion question that I do want to get to in a few slides, because it questions what happens when we're not a society of people building things together. And what does that mean for our citizenship? What does that mean for our livelihoods? What does that mean for our engagement? Have a
Yeah,
thought?
I sort of had a comment. You talk about like the sort of creative works, and that's like I hear so much of people being like, oh, now I can like oh, would never like create art, but now I can do it. I can just type it into AI, and then it'll give me like a pretty picture, or like do like write a poem with AI, and I'm like that's not the point of a creative endeavor. The creative endeavor is to, put yourself into a work and express something about it. Like when I write a poem, I'm not writing it to like have a pretty poem. I'm writing it to like express an emotion. So like AI is like just circumvents the entire point of that.
Well, and it's similar for, I know a lot of professors have the headache with AI generated assignments from students. I'm not trying to figure out if AI can do this. I'm trying to figure out if you, the student, can do it, right? I don't need to know if AI can do a passing version of this. I need to know if you can, right? And so this really leads to important questions about how is it being used in our fields, right? Are we jumping the gun in cutting jobs? And there have been mass amounts of layoffs already to make room for AI. And as we've seen, those pilot programs actually don't go great. 95%, we remember from the beginning, were failures, okay? So when we ask how is AI being used, I'll use some of the examples in the classroom here. I taught a career readiness class for a long time. A lot of students had kind of this reaction. It's like, oh, I can just put my resume into AI, and with the job thing, job posting, and it'll give all the keywords, and then the AI on the back end, in terms of how it's processed, will be happy. And it just ends up being then AI talking to AI. They're not checking it through to see if there are, added cosplay awards that did not exist or something like that. And so what happens is you get these form letters, right? I don't know about you all. Writing cover letters, I don't think anyone has ever said is fun. Probably no one likes to do it. I would be one of them. And so in this career development course, one of the assignments was to write a cover letter. They had to come for a workshop. It wasn't graded or anything yet. It was just we were going to workshop it together. And I said, okay, come with it. And then I started the class and I said, okay, how many of your cover letter looks like this? And about 80% of the class was like, because they just got a template, or they asked AI to do it and it spit out a template pretty much exactly like this. And so we're losing this opportunity to express our individuality, to actually share what would make us good in a job, in a profession, to actually do the work. Sophia?
That's why like now like a resume or like or a cover letter is not enough when you're applying to a job.
Yeah.
It's like right now I'm working my portfolio, which is kind of hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, well, I think a portfolio now is way better to show my personality, that present my work, like proof literally, because this now it's like also like usually now that the job hunting is super hard.
Mm-hmm.
And it mostly like people who get jobs are like, oh, no one, they know someone in the field.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, if they know someone, like most likely I would just hire that person. If I have 100 people applicants who are the same, right?
Yeah, and part of that is AI lets you then apply a bunch of places really rapidly. We're just shooting it out everywhere, right? And so AI is looking at a bunch of AI applicants and all of these kind of things. And so when recruiters or people are hiring and you're like, I don't know how to sort through or sift through this massive volume to figure out what's legitimate and what's not, then what do we default to? It goes back to who you know. And so networking is something you can't sleep on. And it's not enough to just network through social media. You actually have to know the person, be in a room, interact, right? Pass the vibe test, right? Yeah. Yeah, Alex.
So I mean, I do think another potential benefit of this stuff getting automated is that we, in some cases, might just have to not do it anymore. Like there are some contexts where, like in a lot of contexts, cover letters have always been yes.
Yeah.
And it's like extra busy work that we have to do. And so if we're discovering like we could just have AI do this, it's like, let's just eliminate it.
Well, and if it's like, I'm talking to AI anyway, right? I'm not actually having a real person look at my application materials. Personally, I feel like me spending hours and hours to do it just right, that just crushes your soul in a special kind of way. Yeah.
I just feel like the unintended consequences on the other side of this can be pretty dire. So a program I was listening to was talking about this exact process where the algorithms develop that they're not that were they're looking for probabilities, right? So like the person who's best for this job is a person named John because you have so many people
Named
in
John.
the job named John. So it's like you have these unintended consequences that pop up.
Yes, and it comes down to also the data that it's trained on, right? Guess what? Our data that's out there and what we put in is not unbiased. It is not objective. And so it's being trained on things with biases built in without any kind of safeguards most of the time to be able to catch itself. Again, it's not looking for that, right? It's giving you the probabilistic answer. It's giving you what likely sounds good, right? And so it's going to, again, perpetuate, well, these are a lot of people who have these kind of jobs now. So if you're different from the people who have these jobs now, then you're not going to get in because you're not the kind of person I've been trained to look for, right? And so it really comes to the question of when are we using it? Why are we using it? What cycles are we kicking off, to Dr. Van's point? And how should it be used, right? So there's this post a while ago. It's like, teachers are using AI to grade student papers. I think most students here, you're paying tuition, would probably be a little ticked off to find out that AI was being used to grade your papers. It's like, well, I could do that on my own. Why am I paying money and showing up here if not to get the expertise of the professors who are teaching me? Right? But then students are using AI to write their papers. So if students are using AI to write their papers and teachers are using AI to grade them, what's the point of going to school then? And this gets to that cycle, right? Of we're losing what the purpose is of the work that we are intending to do. We are losing the mission in trying to shortcut it, right? That said, it is a tool for you. Right? It can cut the busy work. So for professors, it can be great for updating schedules and syllabi, right? Can you update the dates for the new calendar year? Creating different versions of existing exams or quizzes, creating examples or hypothetical situations that students can respond to or work with, developing rubrics based on assignment descriptions to make sure that grading is consistent and those kind of things. A lot of that is busy work that can save a lot of time, maybe let professors do more innovative things, right? But there are some things that we're comfortable with, some things that are not, and those are the personal decisions that we have to make. So for example, I do use AI in my teaching. Here's an example of a quiz for an intro writing class that I did. And it allowed me to create a different version, similar kind of thing, creating different examples to work with. I knew what I was looking for, so I was able to vet it. This allowed me to give students an opportunity to have a do-over, right? To have more examples to practice with, to come to me when they needed help and then revise it, right? It can be a great tool in some circumstances, right? And for students, exploring and using AI is important. Go ahead.
About that.
Oh, please.
Because I'm very interested in how you think about it, because for me. Setting a document that was not made by me.
Mhm.
Is a very cognitively demanding task.
Yes.
And I don't know that it's less cognitively demanding on me than just coming up with the thing in the first place.
It depends. So I made the original assignment myself, and then I would say I would like another version of this with different examples, but the same tasks. And so I'm comparing something to something already existing. That was pretty easy cognitively for me to do.
I use it to generate incorrect answers.
Yes.
To quiz questions, and that is cognitively demanding, trying to
Yes.
come up with
Yeah, that's
answers that are like plausible but not correct is hard.
Mhm.
And then you can also put your quiz question into ChatGPT and see if it knows. Because then that's, if students are gonna use it to do that, they can check for that.
And for grammar and writing, I can say, give me a paragraph with these errors in it. And identifying the errors and those kind of things, where that is taxing for me to write an example of just random writing to practice with, right? So it can be very useful in those ways, right? But there are definitely times where it's like, oh, maybe ChatGPT can help me with this. I actually did it for trying to generate slides for this. It's like, oh, I'm combining a couple different talks I've done. Maybe AI can help me do that. And I was like, oh, what it gave me is garbage. It will be far more taxing. I'm just going to build it myself because it doesn't use millennial movie memes like I do, right? It doesn't feel like me. It's so generic. It loses some of its zing. You know, you're here on a Friday morning. I want it to be engaging. All right. So for students, right, we need to make sure that your AI use is matching the desired learning outcome. You're going to be expected to know how to use it. We want you to know how to use it and use it right. That's why we want you to have AI literacy, right? And it should be driving thought, not replacing it. So is this an advanced course where you have those foundations, where you're able to engage with it critically? Or are we supplementing or subverting, developing those foundations by using it as a crutch, right? And that is the key question there. So I teach a class, it's called AI Media and the Future of Technology. I require my students to use AI in that class, but we do it very purposefully in order to develop our critical thinking skills with how we use the AI, right? So I often get asked as someone who talks about AI, do I like AI or not? Is it good or bad? And again, I have an elementary schooler. Of course, I've seen Frozen a bajillion times. And this little throwaway a lot of people miss, but it's Olaf's theory about advancing technologies being both our savior and our doom. And I think that sums up my own personal philosophies about technology pretty soundly, because we've brought up already a lot of these ethical concerns in how we're using AI, right? Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it can be so helpful for making the world more accessible to us, to allowing us to cut through the busy work that is taking away our time from the stuff that we really should be doing. All right, but we also have seen negative impacts of AI use and how it's being applied. And so the ethical considerations is a huge part of when we think about AI literacy, right? So is AI good or bad? I was preparing for this with Dr. Van, and she had heard me use this example before. AI is just another type of technology. And so like any other technology, it's not inherently good or bad. It comes down to how we use it. So for example, not a lot of people know gunpowder was actually originally developed by the Chinese. They were searching for the elixir of life. And when they first developed it, they started using it for fireworks and amazing firework displays. But then, as we know, especially given its English name of gunpowder, it was developed in order to use as a weapon for warfare, right? The actual physical material of it did not change. How we used it did. Technology cannot be understood separately from how we interact with it. It is inherently social. What it means is social, and we do not get to take a back seat to that. We decide in how we interact and engage with it. So, is AI good or bad? AI is a tool. What we do with it is up to us. So if it's good or bad, that depends on our choices, our decisions. Okay. You want to push on it?
But, you know, a pistol
Mhm.
is not meant to eat spaghetti,
True.
right? It's meant to kill, and it's meant to kill humans,
Yes.
right? It's not meant to even kill animals.
But it is designed by who?
By us.
Yes.
But it is a tool, and but my point is that tools have an intention, whether or not, we acknowledge that intention. And I guess my question is then, what is AI's intention? Because to me, it looks like it's been created by a bunch of people who are extraordinarily wealthy, extraordinarily fascist, and extraordinarily disconnected from the life experience of the average American.
Well, and this is to the point of how is AI trained, right? Where is it coming from? What is it developed for? And this is really the crucial thing is like, it's not neutral. It is not objective, right? Neither is most of our tools, right? We can sometimes use things for different things, but most of our technologies in here were designed for us to use in a certain way. This clicker was used to design to interact with certain things in certain ways. And so it makes it easier. Can you use it for other things? Absolutely. There's a laser pointer. I use it to drive my cat crazy, right? Maybe not what it was designed to do. Use it for that anyway. And so that's the thing with tools and technology is you have to understand it through the social lens of it. And AI is not exempt from that. So I would agree with you that who has the power to develop this? Who has the control for the access? Who is developing it? Who is training it? Why and with what purposes and what mission, right? We live in an attention economy. A lot of our large language models, they just want you to keep interacting with it. They don't really care about anything other than your time spent interacting with it, right? So is AI good or bad? Again, I think we can all point to some really cool things it's doing, some amazing potential opportunities to it, but there are also some big problems and challenges and issues as a result of it as well. So the point is, it is not separate from who we collectively are, and therefore it also speaks to who we are as people, how we engage as a society, right? So when we ask ethical questions, we shouldn't be asking can, we should be asking should. This is from Jurassic Park. Beautiful thing, right? Are we making an island full of prehistoric animals? No. But in a way, kind of yes, right? Are they going to eat us? Maybe. All right. So with AI, we really need to stop and consider what are the implications of this, whether we're intending it to happen or not. There are unintended consequences and impacts. Sometimes those impacts are intended because other people can profit from it. Okay. All right. So the genie's already out of the bottle. How should we approach generative AI? And there are a few different things in context. Oh, yeah, go for it.
So do you have any like limitations of policies that are currently implemented that make AI helpful?
So most of the limitations are self-imposed from the people who own the AI. And that's due to social pressures, or as we talked about in the case, like there's a lawsuit brought against, there have been multiple lawsuits brought against OpenAI actually, in terms of copyright infringement, in terms of safeguards, in terms of access. This most recent one is focusing on underage, people under 18 interacting with it and what kind of safeguards and guardrails there are. But a lot of those changes are being driven from the company itself, really more to keep people buying and using their product, right?
How about like environmental?
So I'm glad that you brought that question up. As a tool, yes, it absolutely makes environmental impact. So let's talk context, bunch of context moving forward. So here we go. There are a lot of ethical concerns with AI, all right? Copyright, likenesses, deep fakes, a lot of the performing and creative arts, there are issues with that. We have the guardrails, we have environmental concerns, right? A lot of people don't necessarily realize how energy intensive our current AI is. That said, with DeepSeek, they were able to train and generate their AI at a fraction of the power costs and those kind of things. So one important consideration with the environmental toll is it's not necessarily fixed, but it is something we should be aware of. There are places where there are massive server farms using massive amounts of energy, not often clean energy, that is impacting a persistent crisis. So it's not something we should be like, it's not a big deal, but it's also not something fixed, and it's something that is changing and evolving, right? And so it's an ongoing question and concern. It also could be an opportunity or a tool that could help us address some of those large, wicked problems that are very difficult for us as individual humans to grapple with. But there are persistent issues with transparency, access, who's able to use and has access to this, who's training it, what kind of data it's trained on, how it's being used and applied, and of course, the misinformation that it can perpetuate, both through hallucinations and intended misinformation that can be spread by it. Do we have a thought?
Yeah, thank you. The misinformation, I heard someone describe, so when you came out with their like VO3, I think they call it, their like new like video software that is like super like realistic. Like I saw a couple of these videos. I was like, if you told me like if you didn't tell me this was AI, like I would not be able to determine. And someone described it as like the greatest tool for propaganda like we've ever had. Because you can just type in anything. Like there was a video of some like newscaster talking like I think they were saying like, oh, like J.K. Rowling had like died on like a sunken boat, and it so like you wouldn't be able to tell. And
Yeah,
so
you
like,
can generate your own podcast as if it really happened just by giving it a topic. It makes it very difficult to live in a world and know what's factual, what's true, what's real. And we're getting bombarded with it because it can do it in seconds. And so it takes so much more time and effort in order to counteract something that is incorrect compared to just getting it out there in the first place. And there have been studies after studies looking at misinformation that even if it is fact-checked, the damage is already done. It is very hard to walk back or undo, even if it's promoting or perpetuating our unconscious biases. And what are the things that maintain our attention? It's rage bait, right? It's stuff that makes us upset and angry, and it makes us stay engaged and online and those kind of things. And we're rewarded by that in an attention economy, right? It's not about what's correct. It's what maintains our attention. Yeah. So I would like to hear you guys discuss a little bit more. Yesterday was actually Constitution and Citizenship Day, as we found out as we were preparing for this. And so I'd love to hear from you all what you think the rise of AI means for citizenship, for civic engagement.
I have thoughts.
I'm sure you do.
I'm actually very, very, I mean, this is very unusual for me because I'm an optimistic person, but I'm very unassociated. I think you can't have a democracy where you don't have commons.
Mm-hmm.
And unless there's a shared baseline of truth, you can't have a democracy. So I think most democracies are going to perish from the earth as a result of this. We may get them back in a couple hundred years, but I don't see this. I see this as portending very, very bad things, because it's in the hands of people who I think are deeply antisocial narcissists.
So to those who couldn't hear, I'll paraphrase, do my best. So the big takeaway here is you can't have a democracy without a commons where there is shared common truth, and that we're seeing the rapid degradation of these spaces, partly driven by who owns and has access and profits from these technologies that are there. And to that point as well, I would also say that a lot of people do suppose that part of our issue is, oh, we're seeing the same stuff and then we're having these polarized reactions, but we aren't actually seeing the same stuff. We're seeing things through this filter, through algorithms and through AI written and ideologically leaning presentations, right? That show us actually different narratives of the same events that then lead us to then different reactions. We are not seeing the same things and reacting differently for the most part. We are seeing things in our filter bubbles. We are seeing things that we like and expect to see because that's what it has trained to do. That's what it figures out. It's like, oh, we're going to give you more of the stuff that you click on. We're going to give you more of the stuff that you like. We're going to give you more of the stuff that you agree with. And anything that is disagreeing, we're going to use to make you upset so that you stay engaged and click on more things, right? And because they get money from that. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm with you. But then there are people here in this room and we still interact with people in our local communities. That's something I turn to a lot when I'm feeling like, oh, this is massive and far-reaching and pervasive and all of those kind of things. I look at the people in front of me, right? I look at the people, I look at students in my class, I look at the colleagues I work with, I look at my neighbors, I look at, my daughter and her friends. I'm like, there's gotta be some way. And I think one of the important things is that we need to be literate. And right now, it kind of came on so quickly and so fast and so pervasively that we didn't really have any kind of defense against it. So we have to claw back that knowledge and understanding in order to be able to engage. Is there anything in the chat?
It says human with other humans.
Human with other humans. Mhm.
So, do you think that eventually everyone will get tired of being upset, tired of the deepfakes, and see the social media spaces specifically as just a bunch of junk, and people will eventually stop using it?
So that is a wonderful hope for those who couldn't hear. Are people going to become disenchanted and basically say, no, not for me anymore? Certainly there are people who do that, who are like, no, I'm going to not be on social media anymore. I'm going to quit this space or those kind of things. But why it's so insidious is it's also addictive. It taps into the same kind of physiological process in our brains that makes us need it. Most students who know they are over-reliant, and if they're being real, addicted to their phones, know it, they don't like it, and they say, I am feeling the brain rot, but they're still perpetuating the behaviors that are contributing to it. Most people know, but can't stop. And part of that is because a lot of people who started experiencing that, you started experiencing it as a kid, right? Your attention span is sucked in. It's so tempting. And I say this as a parent who's trying to teach good technological use to my child, and I catch myself being like, oh, let me just go on my phone real quick. And then of course she's obsessed with phones and those kind of things because she sees it all around her, even though she's not allowed to have it, right? I'm gonna be a dumb phone mom for sure for a while. Yeah. And so some of it is we need to have awareness first and foremost. And awareness is the first step. But if we understand the processes that are making us feel that brain rot, like we even have a term for it, my goodness, brain rot. We know the negative impacts for it. We recognize it, we see it all the time, and yet we're still perpetuating it because we're tired. And it's easy, and it's relaxing. And there are funny videos on TikTok. Cat pictures. And so it makes it really hard to step away from it, even if you want to. Like, it's a requirement for living and interacting in this day and age, right? Going to a restaurant, you need to bring out your phone to use the QR code in order to get the menu or what have you, right? I'm looking around the room. We have people on our phones right now. We have people have their phones sitting next to them and
Organize the event. It's not as bad.
you're okay, Alex. But I do the same thing too. When I come in, the phone comes out of my pocket, it gets set right next to me, and there it is, right? I tell my students before exams, it's like, okay, you need to tuck in your baby, right? Because and it is, we're so attached to it. We are. It feels like I left my phone in my car on campus one day and I was a mess. Not only that, like I couldn't get into my email and stuff because I needed my two-factor authentication. Like it's built into how we do everything, right? And so I say this not to judge, I say it as someone who experiences the affliction, okay? But we need to have that awareness. We need to be able to get to that outcome. I think most people are disenchanted. I think we are. I think people are reasonable human beings. There are certainly people who think that AI and all things technology are the panacea and they're going to solve every problem that we absolutely have, and it's a magic bullet that's going to solve things. Most of the people I talk to are not in that camp.
We have folks returning to landlines or discussing the return of landlines.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, I think also just like more generally, I mean, I'm just out of prediction business. Who knows what's gonna happen? But I
Yeah.
think the important point to stress is like, whatever's gonna happen, it's not just gonna happen automatically.
Yes.
We are the ones, the people in this room, the people who are watching this recording, people in the chat, like, we are the participants in this conversation and we have the power to influence other people by talking to people about it and so on. And so it's like, you know, a lot, like some people will go into tech jobs and you'll have a, you know, a role in as an employee in your institution, right? So it's like, we have to, you know, put our hands on the wheel and like, you know, try to push these changes in the direction that we think they should go. It's whatever's gonna happen, it's not just gonna, you know, if we're gonna get cured of our social media illnesses, it's not just gonna be like.
It's not going to happen passively for us.
Sick of it and stop.
Yeah.
Like, there's gonna be human agency.
For more on this, read Alex.
And we have a book plug and.
Hey, say that.
Maybe later.
Yes, but it's not something that we can just rely on resolving itself, partly because it is already so entrenched in everything that we do. It is something that we're already experiencing and combating. And so it will take work, and complacency is going to be our downfall on this for sure. Yeah.
So I've thought a lot about what this all means for me as a creative person. I'm a composer. And one of the things I find that AI does is like the ultimate logocentric device. It's all about it's a reification machine, right? It's all about the important thing is the song that sounds like Taylor Swift, not the process that goes into creating a song, right? Not the human ritual that surrounds going to concerts and engaging with music in the social setting, or the kind of conversation that we have about musical value to each other. It's just, let's create a song that fulfills this list of things, and I worry that this is going to make us stupid.
And what we're seeing is it is.
Yeah.
Again, if we're turning off our brains when we interact with it, that I think is about as good of a definition of stupid as we can get if our brains are just not showing up to the event in the first place, right?
Like one of the things I've been going back to writing music by hand, and I really get on my students' case about making sure they're taking notes by hand, because I talk fast. The way you can keep up with this, you have to keep summarizing, right? So you're actually actively participating in the learning. But it seems to me that it's like we're also trying to dispel the human body through this technology, as if the human body does. I mean, and it was a long intellectual history of the human body as being a site of, you know, fallen, sinful and fallen, you know, sinful and fallen nature. And I feel like there's, I don't know, it's just weird. And I feel like we maybe need to re-engage with the bodily aspects of learning, like embodied learning, rather than.
So the big argument, again, for people who can't hear, is that we're separating the experience of learning from the bodily experience of learning. And in doing so, maybe making it at the surface or more superficial level, we're missing some of the deeper connections that might come from it. I'm looking over here because I think this side of the room is where a lot of our students are at. What about for you all in terms of your own experiences in learning? How has that been in terms of how you engage differently?
Well, actually, this is like kind of a question on my mind since like earlier in the lecture when you were talking about like using AI. I can't remember the exact word you used, but it's like using it in a way that is, you know, not like hindering your like critical thinking.
Mhm.
And I think just recently, this was like late at night, and I came upon this paper that was talking about, I was watching a video that mentioned it, about a correlational study between people with gingivitis, like leading to early onset Alzheimer's.
Mhm.
And then this theory that like the plaque that is like built up from gingivitis is like the same as like, you know, what it is that like leads to or leads to early onset Alzheimer's. So I found this paper and it was like starting reading through it and it's just very dense. And I was like, okay, I could like save this and put it away in my like long list of things to read and probably never get to it. Or I could plug it into AI and say, hey, like summarize this paper for me. Because like that's one of the things I've heard is that AI is very good for summarizing information. Like that is one of the things that it's good at. Are there issues with that approach that I'm like not seeing?
So I put it to everyone. The question was, found an interesting sounding article, didn't really have the time to go through the technical way that it was written. This is very common in academic research. We're taught to write very technically for other experts in the field. And so I used AI to summarize. Is that wrong? And I think that's such a great question and case study, because I think most of us would say it depends, right? Are you doing that for your own learning, for your own interest? Is it something that is you want to make sure you have the nuance of in order to move forward? Is it something that you're just trying to generally learn more about? And those are the kind of decisions that we have to make for ourselves. I'd say if it's just I'm clicking and interested in finding that, and this can help me understand it a little better, great, right? Yeah.
Actually, from some of my classes, so I'm in the graduate program for the MBA.
Mm-hmm.
AI is very integrated in our program, and a lot of our professors actually encourage the use of AI.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you're being transparent with it, saying like if you repair, like if you're submitting a paper or something, just state, oh, AI was used.
Mm-hmm.
With summarizing, paraphrasing, or whatever. I think as long as there's a conversation or like a professor encourages that AI is could be used,
Mm-hmm.
I don't see like it could be beneficial for the student and the professor.
Yes, and so again, it's one of those where there are circumstances where we might argue yes, and circumstances where it's like, oh, but that's too far or inappropriate. Transparent use often doesn't come along, and we don't have good, consistent expectations or practices on how to cite it. So for instance, if you wrote an academic article and you had to cut the word count and you used AI to help cut your writing down shorter, this is a real example. I've used that before, how to do it, right? But it's also the question when you're working with the journal, they ask to disclose AI, and it's like, well, yes, but I don't want you to think that any of the writing was AI. I was identifying places I could be more concise. And so I actually ended up writing a very long response about how it was used and how are we going to do this and those kind of things, because it's like, well, this was from my dissertation, which was very long. I had to condense it much shorter, and it is. And by the way, I didn't take all of its recommendations because I was like, I need to keep all these sources in here And so I gave it that instruction and it didn't do that, right? So it's one of those things you need to vet on it. We had something
Yeah,
on Zoom.
In that vein of using it with care, a number of people in the chat brought in that one of the dangers is that the summary will be a summary of what it expects the article to say, not what the article actually says, and which can be harder to discern if you don't already know something about the topic, so it would be harder to actually vet if it's a good summary. So just again, in the that vein of using it with care. And people also pointed out that one of the elements of that is also how do you phrase the question of in terms of asking for the synthesis for the summary, because it's trying to please you. How does that actually shape what it then gives as the accounting for the article? So does it come out with basically, you know, like if you're asking like, does this say about, so how does that actually like shape what it actually says?
Think about too how like clickbait titles, they could technically be summarizing an article, but they're doing it in a way that is pushing a particular vantage or viewpoint. Language itself is not neutral. Yeah.
Piggyback on that, again, listening to NPR last night,
Mhm.
they were talking, it was on point, and they were talking about Elon Musk's project to replace Wikipedia.
Mhm.
And he wants to use Grok to do it.
Mhm.
Grok would go in and it would rewrite the articles and remove the falsehood
Mhm.
and.
There are
fix the
air quotes
half-
happening for
yeah,
people who can't see.
fix the half truths. So that everything would become real, but I mean, it's like, there's no way that I would take it from Grok that. Whatever Elon Musk thinks is a truth, I mean, I think, you know, how much ketamine is he on that day, you know, what, like. That is not someone I want to be an arbiter of truth, right?
And we have people turning to it for their medical needs. Do we want them to not be going to the doctor and just doing whatever AI says? So all of this to say, because I am aware of our time, is how should we be using our generative AI capabilities? And that's really the open question. It's something we can't be passive about. To this day, I love this tweet that is at least a couple years old now, and I still think resonates very well. You know what the biggest problem with pushing all things AI is? Wrong direction. I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do art and writing, not for AI to do my art and writing so I can do my laundry and dishes. And so we want to think about the trajectory and the way that we're going. When is it important for it to be from us? I think the thing that makes me the most sad that I see with students who turn to AI is they don't think that they have anything important to say, or that their perspective isn't worth it, or that what AI can do is so much better. And that's just patently false. All right. So I think if I leave you with any thought today, please remember that, right? There is a lot of value in what comes from us, and we don't want to lose that. Yeah.
I would say there are certain areas though where we would rather have like AI accuracy over human intuition, I guess.
Yes, and so again, this is also a question too, but should it be AI, this black box that we can't understand it, or is it something that if we really want to privilege accuracy, right, should we go back to an old school algorithm that it can be programmed consistently? Or if we need the adaptability of AI, how do we curate the data set and how is it trained? And so this is the idea again that not all AI is created equal. It's very tempting to lump everything in together. And in fact, in terms of what we use and how we use it, we often do. And that is a mistake as well. There are opportunities. It is a tool. It can actually promote our critical thinking, but we have to do it right.
Please join me in thanking Professor Marshall.
Thank you all for coming. I enjoyed talking about this, so it was delightful. Thank you.